Alexander stepped up to the podium under the bright gymnasium lights, his maroon gown flowing slightly as he adjusted the microphone. The entire crowd of parents, students, and faculty fell into an expectant hush. He looked straight toward the section where his extended family sat clustered together, his grandfather Victor prominent in the front with his usual stern posture. "This speech is dedicated to the family that decided I didn't deserve a future," Alexander said, his voice clear and steady, carrying years of quiet resolve. He reached into his inner pocket and slowly pulled out a folded, cream-colored legal document. Flashbulbs from phones and cameras popped across the room. His grandfather shifted in his seat, jaw tightening. In the front row, his mother Laura smiled through glistening tears, her heart pounding with a mix of pride and long-held pain. "You'd think blood ties mean unconditional love, but in our family, love was always conditional. It flowed freely when you followed the expected path, when you reflected well on the family name, when you fit neatly into the perfect picture they had painted for generations. I never fit that picture, and neither did my son." Laura was only 22 when she found herself pregnant with Alexander. No ring on her finger, no supportive partner by her side. Just her, a college dropout scraping by in a small apartment in suburban Indianapolis, and the growing realization that life had taken an unexpected turn. Her father, Victor, had always been the pillar of the family, a successful accountant who valued appearances above all. When Laura broke the news, the silence that followed was heavier than any shout. He didn't speak to her for months. When he finally did, it was in measured tones that cut deeper than anger. "You've thrown away everything we worked for, Laura. This is a mistake that will follow you forever." But Alexander was never a mistake to her. From the moment she held him, tiny and perfect in the hospital room, she knew he was her greatest right decision in a world that had suddenly felt so wrong. Alexander's biological father left when the boy was barely 2 years old, muttering about not being ready for fatherhood and disappearing into a new life across state lines. Just like that, it was Laura and Alexander against the world. The family labeled them the broken branch, whispering it at holiday dinners when they thought no one could hear. Laura worked 3 jobs, waitressing during the day, cleaning offices at night, and tutoring on weekends. She went back to school part-time, studying business administration in dimly lit community college classrooms while Alexander slept on a blanket beside her desk. She cooked simple meals half asleep, bandaged scraped knees from playground falls, and balanced checkbooks late into the night, always making sure her son never saw the worry lines etching deeper into her face. Alexander was a quiet child, observant in a way that made him seem older than his years. He watched rooms before speaking, absorbed details others missed. By 8 years old, he was already asking questions that pierced her heart.
"Mom,
"Why don't we visit Grandpa and Grandma for Christmas like my cousins?" Laura would smile softly and say they were busy with work, but the truth burned inside. They weren't invited. Birthdays passed with no cards or calls from that side of the family. Meanwhile, Laura's siblings posted glossy photos of ski vacations and family trips, all quietly subsidized by Victor's legacy accounts. Every grandchild received a substantial college fund upon birth, except Alexander. Laura tried to shield him from it, buying small gifts and celebrating quietly at home with homemade cake and stories. But children sense exclusion. They feel the absence of warmth like a draft through an open window. Still, Alexander smiled. He earned straight A's year after year, making the honor roll without the applause of grandparents or aunts and uncles. One afternoon, Laura caught him staring at an old photo on her phone, of Victor holding Laura's niece at her middle school graduation. Alexander looked up with those serious eyes and asked, "Was Grandpa ever proud of you, Mom?" The question hung in the air, heavy with innocence. Laura didn't have an answer, because she honestly wasn't sure. Victor's disappointment was never loud. It was a quiet weight, like carrying an invisible stone that slowly wore you down over time. She refused to let Alexander carry that burden. "You don't need anyone else's approval as long as you believe in yourself," she told him, pulling him into a hug. But deep down, she knew kids need to be seen and celebrated. If her family wouldn't provide that, she would find another way to make the world notice him. So she stayed silent through the hurts, smiling at family events when they happened, waiting for the day her son would prove that coming from a broken home didn't mean ending up broken. It meant emerging stronger, forged in resilience. The years passed in a rhythm of struggle and quiet triumphs. Laura avoided large family gatherings when she could, not because invitations stopped entirely, but because the polite smiles never reached their eyes. The questions always circled back to her poor choices, subtle digs reminding her she no longer belonged in their perfect narrative. But when Alexander turned 17, she thought perhaps it was time to try again. The gathering was at her brother Mark's spacious home in a gated community outside Indianapolis. Manicured lawn, sparkling pool, coordinated outfits on his twin daughters. They arrived with a store-bought pie and store-brand lemonade. Feeling the contrast immediately, Alexander took a deep breath before stepping out of their modest sedan. He always tried, even when it was uncomfortable. Inside, cousins chattered about college tours, new gadgets, and debate team wins. Alexander sat quietly, sipping lemonade, nodding when spoken to, which wasn't often. Then the conversation turned to finances. Mark bragged about optimizing trusts for his kids. His wife added, "It really levels the playing field for all the grandkids now." A pause fell. Then someone muttered, almost casually, "Well, except Alexander." Laura's hand froze while pouring drinks. Alexander looked down at his plate, expression unreadable. No one corrected it. No apology. Just silence that confirmed every fear. Laura's stomach twisted, but she kept that practiced smile, the same one she wore at 22 announcing her pregnancy. Later, after Alexander stepped outside, she followed Victor into the study, where he poured his usual scotch. "Why didn't Alexander get a college fund?" she asked quietly. Victor sipped slowly. "Laura, he's from an unstable situation. Let's be realistic about his chances," she pressed, mentioning the funds given to cousins who had struggled academically. He shrugged. "Your siblings did things the right way. You didn't." It wasn't just money. It was punishment for defying their vision of perfection, for surviving without their approval. Laura left the study without another word, finding Alexander by the backyard fence, staring at the neighbor's lights. He didn't ask what happened. "We can leave whenever you're ready," he said simply. On the drive home, the word "accept" echoed in her mind, landing like a quiet indictment. Alexander wasn't excluded because he had failed or misbehaved. He was excluded because he was hers. In Victor's world, that made him lesser. That night, Laura watched Alexander at the kitchen table doing homework. The same table that had witnessed every meal, every late-night study session, every conversation about scraped knees and dreams. She renewed her silent promise. If they couldn't see his worth, she would ensure the world did. The following weeks were deceptively quiet. Alexander dove deeper into his studies while Laura maintained the facade of normalcy. But inside, the wound festered. She replayed Victor's words endlessly. Why waste resources on him? Wondering if the exclusion had been planned from the start. One weekend, Laura's mother called asking for help organizing old family records. Reluctantly, Laura went. Her mother looked frilier, worn by years of quiet complicity. Handing over a box labeled trust documents, she asked Laura to file them. That's when Laura found it, a misfiled folder with cream paper and a gold emblem. The addendum, dated 2 years after Alexander's birth, stated clearly in legal language, grandchildren born to Laura are excluded from this educational trust. It wasn't an oversight. It was deliberate. Signed by both parents. Laura confronted her mother in the kitchen, documents shaking in her hand. You knew he was cut out? Her mother sighed. Stirring tea. It was your father's call. He didn't want to reward poor decisions. Laura's voice broke. You signed it too. The revelations poured out. Her siblings had known but went along for the family image. They had smiled at holidays, shaken Alexander's hand, posted token well wishes on social media, all while aware his future had been erased in legal whispers. Laura drove home in a fury, screaming alone in the car until her throat burned. It wasn't the money anymore. It was the calculated erasure. The justification under the guise of protecting legacy and appearances. How far would people go to maintain illusions? When she arrived, Alexander was reading on the couch. Everything okay? He asked. Laura stared at her brilliant, kind son and chose silence for now. She had the truth now, and it would become her strength. The days blurred into routine. Work, dinners, bills. But insomnia gripped her. At 3 a.m., doubts crept in. Maybe they were right. Maybe she had failed him. One midnight, after Alexander had gone to bed, Laura sat on the cold kitchen floor with a half-empty wine bottle and the document spread across her lap. Tears streamed silently. She didn't hear his footsteps at first. Alexander appeared in pajamas, hair tousled, and sat beside her. He glanced at the paper. It's okay,
Mom.
I already knew, he said softly. No anger. Just steady understanding. How? She whispered. Stunned. He shrugged. I overheard things over the years. Grandpa acting like I was invisible except for photos. Aunt Olivia giving me generic scholarship advice while her kids shopped for dorms with their funds. He had seen every slight, every fake smile, every exclusion, and carried the pain silently to protect her. Laura's heart shattered. Before she could apologize, he touched her hand. Don't be sorry. I don't need their money. I'll earn my own future. His eyes burned with purpose, not bravado. He had turned every bruise into fuel. They hugged in the quiet kitchen. And for the first time, Laura believed they might not need the family's validation at all. Alexander's path forward would be built on resilience, not inheritance. Something had ignited in him that night. He became more watchful, carrying a small recording device discreetly. At subsequent family events, he lingered near conversations, capturing Victor chuckling to Mark, "That boy won't amount to much without structure, no father figure." Or Olivia remarking at a cousin's birthday, "Good thing Dad didn't waste the fund on Laura's kid, he'd probably squander it." Alexander never reacted outwardly. He filed it away. At school, he intensified efforts, debate club, robotics competitions, late nights on extra credit. He presented Laura with a spreadsheet of 17 college applications, each customized meticulously, Ivy Leagues, state honors programs, scholarships. Just in case, he smirked. One stood apart, the valedictorian speech submission. He entered without telling her. Weeks later, he handed her the acceptance envelope. Your essay, Invisible Roots, selected for 2025 graduation address. Laura read it alone that night. It was masterful, reflecting on conditional love, allocated futures like investments, growing up unseen in one's own family. Precise, powerful, without bitterness or names. It weaponized silence into undeniable spotlight. Graduation day dawned bright and clear in June. The Indianapolis gymnasium filled wall-to-wall with folding chairs and buzzing excitement. Families craned necks toward the stage. Laura sat near the front, Heart racing. Alexander appeared calm as the principal announced him as valedictorian. Applause swelled as he walked to the podium. He began, "People told me I wouldn't amount to much because of where I came from, because I lacked what others were handed at birth." His voice remained measured, steel beneath the calm. He described potential not as inheritance, but as something earned through grit. He looked toward Victor's section. "It's built through effort, not last names or bank accounts." Pulling out the document, gasps rippled. "This paper tried to erase me, stating I wasn't entitled to opportunities because my family wasn't perfect enough." He read the clause aloud, words hanging heavy. The room held its breath. Then he smiled. "But I never needed it. I earned 17 acceptances, multiple full rides, including my dream school." He credited Laura. "I had a mother who taught me quiet dignity, to rise despite slammed doors." To the doubters, "Thank you. You showed me what I never want to be." Thunderous applause erupted. People stood, cheering. Victor sat frozen, aged visibly. Laura wept with joy. Alexander hugged her afterward, whispering, "You gave me everything." He had flipped their legacy, building from discipline what money couldn't buy. But the story begins earlier. As Laura reflected later that night, the exclusion document wasn't just paper. It represented years of calculated rejection rooted in societal pressures around family structure, single parenthood, and legacy preservation in middle-class America. Legal trusts like Victor's were common tools for wealth transfer, but weaponized here to enforce conformity. Laura's early struggles shaped everything. After dropping out, she faced judgment not just from family, but landlords wary of single mothers, employers questioning gaps in resumes, and a legal system where child support battles dragged on with little result. Alexander's father paid sporadically at best, forcing Laura into survival mode, food banks some months, utility shut-off notices others. Yet she modeled perseverance, reading to him nightly, teaching budgeting as a game. School events highlighted the divide. While cousins received new backpacks and laptops from grandparents, Alexander made do with hand-me-downs and library books. He never complained, channeling energy into academics. Teachers noticed his focus, recommending advanced programs that Laura supported through overtime. The family gathering at Mark's exposed the rot publicly for the first time. The casual, "except Alexander," comment wasn't accidental. It reflected normalized exclusion. Laura's den confrontation revealed Victor's worldview. Success required traditional structures. Single motherhood equated to recklessness deserving no investment. Psychologically, it inflicted complex trauma, imposter syndrome in Laura, early hyperindependence in Alexander. Discovering the addendum confirmed intent. Trusts in the U.S. often include clauses for responsible heirs. But here it explicitly targeted Laura's line, signed post-birth. Her mother's complicity highlighted generational enabling, where image trumped ethics. Siblings' awareness without intervention showed loyalty's cost, maintaining status quo over fairness. That midnight kitchen scene became pivotal. Alexander's revelation he knew since age 10, piecing together whispers. Differential treatment revealed his emotional intelligence. He protected Laura by internalizing pain, transforming it into drive. His resolve, "I'll earn it," marked a psychological shift from victim to architect of destiny, common in resilience psychology. Post-confrontation, Alexander's transformation accelerated. He researched family law and trusts online, understanding how such clauses held in court but carried moral weight in public. Secret recordings at events captured authentic bias. Victor's jokes about fatherless outcomes, Olivia's assumptions about wasted potential. These became internal fuel, not for vengeance but validation. School became his arena. Debate honed articulation. Robotics built problem-solving. Counselors praised his application strategy, tailored essays highlighting single-parent resilience, leadership without privilege. Full-ride offers arrived from state universities and one Ivy, proving merit over money. The speech, Invisible Roots, evolved from personal essay to strategic statement, vetted carefully to avoid libel while exposing truth. Laura supported quietly, managing her own healing, therapy sessions unpacking conditional love scars, journaling doubts. She balanced pride with fear of backlash, knowing public exposure risked family rifts but offered closure. The night before graduation, they reviewed the speech together. Alexander emphasized dignity, no attacks, just mirror to their actions. Laura saw echoes of her teachings, quiet strength over confrontation. As the ceremony approached, tension built. Victor's side assumed normalcy, unaware of the document's inclusion or recordings. Laura prepared emotionally, recalling every Bill struggle, every lonely holiday, every whispered judgment. Alexander's success wasn't revenge. It was redefinition of worth beyond legacy accounts, challenging American myths of meritocracy while exposing class and family biases. In the final preparations, Alexander practiced delivery, ensuring emotional control. The folder of acceptances symbolized proof, 17 paths forward, none reliant on the family trust. Laura realized the moral question: when does tough love become cruelty? And does blood obligation outweigh personal choices? The applause followed Alexander off stage like a wave. Students rushing to congratulate him, teachers shaking hands. Laura embraced him tightly. Years of sacrifice validated in that hug. "You gave me everything," he whispered again. The family section remained subdued, Victor exiting silently without acknowledgement. Emily wait. Olivia, staring downward in discomfort. In aftermath, conversations rippled through the community. Some relatives reached out awkwardly, others distanced. Laura felt free, pity replacing resentment. Alexander's triumph couldn't be claimed or diminished. He headed to his dream university on full merit aid, carrying tools of resilience no trust could buy. Reflecting later, Laura pondered the haunting question: in families bound by conditional love, who truly loses when exclusion backfires into strength? The legacy they protected fractured, while Alexander's self-built future endured unbreakable. What price do we pay for perfection over compassion?